I would say that all signs are pointing to this could be it.
To watch one of the greatest of all time do it for a final time in front of the fans that love him.
Ben, quick throw. Deontay Johnson, touchdown, Steelers.
These are the consistent errors from Baker Mayfield.
It's Harrison Bryant. Don't go anywhere. Najee Harris to the end zone. And Ben, it's all yours.
I'm at a loss for words. I'm just so thankful for these fans and this place. There's no place like it.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome into First Take. Thanks for being here with us. I'm Charlie Arnold. We've got Dominique Foxworth, also Super Bowl champ Jeff Saturday here to kick things off. And you know what? It's actually very appropriate to have both of you here right now, because who better to talk to you about Big Ben than two guys who played against the future Hall of Famer. So, gentlemen, let's get right into it. Last night, Ben Roethlisberger met with a standing ovation as he took the field to play his final game at Heinz Field, putting the bow on his successful 18-year NFL career. The Steelers then delivered Roethlisberger's greatest wish, 26-14 victory against the Browns. Now, as you can imagine, the quarterback choked up after the game.
I didn't think I was going to take the field again, but it's the best play in football when you're an offensive player is to take a knee. And so I'm glad I got to do it one last time.
One last time. How do you leave this place, Ben?
I don't know. With a win. So thankful and blessed to be able to call this place home for almost half my life. In front of these fans and seeing all the signs, and there's no place like it.
Such a cool scene. Jeff, how are you going to remember Ben's playing career?
Oh, man, bodies littered around his feet, guys draped on him still strong enough to sling that thing out there and make play after play. I think when you think about Pittsburgh quarterback, you think about Ben Roethlisberger, how tough he is, just physically showing up each and every, and the power and the ability to do it. And then me personally, I'm going to remember him as a great tackler. I mean, listen, we're in a playoff game, and it's a scoop and score type situation for our defense. Meanwhile, you see Big Bettis right here. Ball pops out. Here he goes. Nick Harper scoops it up. We think it's a touchdown. We're celebrating. Ben's running an S route back there and somehow has the wherewithal to reach back and make that play. Probably the biggest play in his career, in all honesty, to save this football game. They go on to win the Super Bowl that year. Just a phenomenal play. But that type of guy, man, he was going to give it all every week. And you saw the emotion last night because he's put everything he has into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll remember him for, like Jeff said, he kind of was unorthodox in the way that he played, and he kept the game pretty simple. He wasn't out there overthinking it. The man dropped back. He tried to find somebody who was open. You weren't open. He'd stay back there and take hits until you got open and throw it to you. But I'm going to choose not to remember the time when he beat me in the playoffs like Jeff is remembering. And I'm going to remember the time he beat someone else in the playoffs when he threw that touchdown to Santonio Holmes to win the Super Bowl. He's going to block out all the touchdowns he's thrown against me, pretend like those never happened. We'll look at this one. It's a lot more fun to watch.
I'm with you, Fox. I mean,
well,
I don't want to remember my painful memories either. Those things hurt. They sting.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I like seeing this Super Bowl, good catch. Yeah. We'll go with that. Yeah, we'll let all the other stuff die. I'm with you, Fox.
Well, there's a reason that he is one of the greatest to ever do it, and that's because he was able to beat both of you among many others. His 98th win at Heinz Field last night, making him third, along with Brett Favre, to have the most wins at a single venue. But let's turn to the other side of the game, because Baker Mayfield, he had one of the worst games of his season last night, throwing 10 straight incomplete passes at one point. Look, it was really just ugly for him. He was sacked 9 times by the Steelers. He was also intercepted twice. He did confirm that after the season, he's going to have surgery to repair the torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. And he said that's one reason it's been a tough season.
It's not going to always be pretty or smooth, but I'm a fighter. If anybody ever questions how much I want it, just turn on this tape. I've continued to lay it out on the line when I haven't been healthy. I tried to fight for our guys. And right now, I'm pretty damn beat up, to be honest with you. There's no way around it. I gave it everything I had tonight.
Definitely tough. The Browns already eliminated from playoff contention. So, Neek, you think Baker should be returning next season as the Browns starter?
Yeah, I think he should, because I don't know what better options they have. And we can point to the injuries that he's had this year, and that suggests that maybe this year was a bit of an aberration, and that last year is more like the Baker, like the progress that we expected from the number one overall pick. It's been a rough year for him, and it's not all been on him. But when you're the quarterback, they celebrate you like you're the savior, even though back then he wasn't like the dominant force on the team. We still treated him that way. And when things aren't going well, you're not going to get the luxury to blame other people. It's going to fall on your shoulders. It's unfortunate. It's unfair. But that's why the quarterbacks are the stars of this league. That's what's going to happen to them. And I do remember early in the season when I guess Baker felt like he was playing well. Didn't he like tweet out a video that was meant to like dunk on everyone who ever doubted him? Now the tables have turned. So I think next year they're going to have to hand the ball back to Baker after he has surgery and he gets better. And hopefully the people around him can lift him up and he can do enough to put them in a position that I think we all expected them to be in as contenders in the AFC.
Yeah, and listen, I agree. I mean, I think when you think about the Cleveland Browns, this has been an organizational failure. I mean, you can give a ton of responsibility to Stefanski, and the offensive coordinator and how he's called this team. 9 sacks. I mean, you left a right tackle who gave up 4 sacks to one player. Like, there's some things. Their running game, the running game wasn't what they expected it to be. You look on the defensive side that we thought would potentially carry this football team. And I absolutely agree. There's a lot of blame to go around. Baker Mayfield being injured in week 2 definitely set this football team back. But, I mean, special teams failed them at times. Defense did. Offense did. You can bring back Baker at a cheap number. I know it's like $19 million or 18 and some change. You can build around him and continue to get your organization and your team stronger because you can win with him. You saw that last year in the playoffs. It's not maybe because of him, but you can win with him. And that's all you're trying to get is a chance in the NFL to make the playoffs and make a run. If you can build the talent around and it performs up to the level of expectations, I think you have a real conversation with the Cleveland Browns because we talked about it before the season. They just didn't play up to it.
So, Jeff, what do you think is the ceiling for him next year then?
I think the same. Listen, I expected them to do some really good things. Their defense, to me, was not nearly what I expected them to be. Especially, I mean, Myles Garrett played out of his mind. Defensive Player of the Year conversation. We understand what that's going to look like. But I expected them in totality to be able to shut more teams down. They did not. And I also expected more explosive plays from the Browns. I think Stefanski has to kind of go back to the drawing board, reconfigure this thing. But this is a playoff football team, in my opinion, that far underperformed this season.
They absolutely are. And I think the only person you can't blame for this is Andrew Berry, like the general manager. His team is loaded. He did everything he was supposed to do. Offensive line is loaded. They got receivers and playmakers at tight end. They got 2 awesome running backs. The defense, they went and got John Johnson. They got Denzel Ward. They got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's outstanding linebacker / safety nickelback type of guy. So, that's the one guy I can look at and say, he got y'all everything y'all needed. And Stefanski and Baker and everyone else on that team, I think we can look at and point the finger and say that y'all didn't do your jobs, but you can't ask for much more as far as roster construction is concerned.
Well, there's certainly a lot of blame to go around. That's something we're going to be addressing later on First Take, so everybody sit tight for that debate. But you know what? Let's look at the Bucs. It was quite the spectacle on Sunday. And, at this point, guys, it is really hard to put anything past Antonio Brown. This was last night, sitting courtside at the Nets home game. I mean, no one really was shocked, though, at this point. So he has not officially been released as a Buck, but head coach Bruce Arians has already made it clear he is no longer on the team. But yesterday, Arians also expressing sympathy for whatever AB is going through right now.
No, I have no regrets. I just hope the best for him. Very hard. And I wish him well. I hope if he needs help, get some. And it's very hard because I do care about him. I care about him a bunch. I hope that he's okay.
Jeff, do you think Antonio Brown has played his last game in the league?
Yes, I do. I don't think he's going to get another opportunity. I think when you walk off in the middle of the third quarter and decide that you're not going to go back out there, it's going to be hard for anybody to trust you going forward. Again, when you talk about the role that he was playing, you think of Godwin's been injured, tears his ACL, Evans is coming back and trying to fight through a soft tissue. You don't have Leonard Fournette, and you're down to the Jets, and you decide now the time to bail out and go somewhere else and do topless jumping jacks through the end zone zone as you go. And the next day you're sitting front court, courtside at a basketball game. That doesn't show me that you have any regret or any sorrow about what you did the day before. I just don't see any other general manager or team going, hey, let's bring this guy in and embrace this. Tom Brady did everything he could do. I mean, he picked him up from the airport, put him in his house, did all those things to check all those boxes for AB. And you saw when he was frustrated what he did. And I'll be honest with you, I said last week, full admission here, I thought he was going to be the catalyst for this Bucs team to take the next step and to continue the pursuit of back-to-back championships. Fox told me I was a fool. I bought in, and I was fooled. I mean, that's just the honest truth. I thought this guy was going to do something. I never in a million years would have expected a player to do that in the middle of a game the way that he did, especially Antonio Brown, because for all of the things he has been, that's a competitive son of a gun on the field. And for him to walk off midway like that, man, I don't see how any team would bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think his talent is obviously quite seductive, and it's got a lot of people in a trance. But I think his career is done, in part because the one person or one of very few people who has the power to bring AB into an organization is Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And he kind of wronged Tom Brady at two different destinations. So, like, who else is going to – if you look around, Tom Brady can do anything, right? He couldn't even do it. So I don't know what quarterback or what coach or what general manager is going to look at Antonio Brown and feel like they can bring him in and he's going to be different. And the tough thing about AB is when they needed him most, like it felt like once he had some power and they had some expectations, that's when he was the problem. So there's like an incongruity there where no one's going to bring in a problem type of player like that unless you really need him. And if you really need him, he shows his true colors. So like Jeff said last week and just about every week in recent history, I said you can't trust AB. And I think that most of the NFL probably finally agrees with me now, and no one is going to bring him back. I will say the incident on the sideline, as like absurd and ridiculous as it is, that single incident, I think, is probably excusable for most teams. I think the Bucs would bring him back if it was just that. But it's not just that. It's a track record of stuff. And who knows what he's doing when the cameras aren't even there. So, I think AB is done. I want to be like Bruce Arians and find the compassion in my heart to wish him well and get all the help that he needs. And I do truly hope he does. But it is so hard to continue to say this stuff about a guy who's done this over and over again. And so I hope he gets the help that he needs, but I also hope that we don't start excusing away his behavior by pointing to mental health. Like, what he did was messed up out there, and that was minor compared to the many other things that he's been accused of.
Yeah, Nick, I mean, you were very firm in your statements last week that he can't be trusted, and now we look at what happened just this past week after you made those comments. So just hypothetically speaking, you were put on a team this upcoming season with Antonio Brown. How would you be able to react, and how would you feel as his teammate?
I mean, I'd be disappointed, honestly, but you go out there and you work. You got a job to do. I've been on plenty of football teams, and it wasn't all with Saints. Like, there's a lot of guys who can't be trusted and a lot of guys who are a little wild and make bad decisions. So I think being on a team with AB wouldn't be uncommon, but I'd be surprised considering how public his displays have been. I'd be shocked. But, I mean, I don't want to go into the history of all the people that I've been around, but there have been guys who've been accused of some pretty terrible things. Mm-hmm. And you go out there and you do your job. And I think that's probably true of just about every workplace. Like, you find out what you have to do and you do what you have to do and you try to stay to yourself and stay away from the people that you feel like you can't trust, like him.
No, it's a great point. Players don't get choices on other players coming into organizations. That's a general manager and a head coach. They make decisions. I've been on player boards, with Indianapolis, and they'll ask you questions. Hey, what are your thoughts here? But ultimately, they make the final call, and so players don't get the opportunity. And to Nick's point, I have been on teams. He's been on teams. You don't like everybody. You don't like the behaviors of everybody you play with. You still show up because you signed up for your job and you get paid to perform your job. And just like any other business in America and anywhere throughout the world, there's some that you don't want to hang around and you don't want to participate and do things with. But ultimately, they're part of the same team you are, and you got to move forward and execute to the best of your ability. So I'm with Dominique. You don't get the choice. You don't hire and fire when you're a player in the NFL. You play with the people that are beside you.
Okay, well, of course, we wish him the best, whatever he's going through. We hope he can find the help he needs. But really, this could not have come at a worse time. The Bucks are majorly depleted as they head into the playoffs. So we're looking at this, shipwrecked is really an appropriate term. Chris Godwin out, Leonard Fournette out, Ronald Jones II, Giovanni Bernard. So given these struggles down in Tampa, Jeff, has Tom Brady won his last Super Bowl?
No, he has not won his last Super Bowl. They will find a way. I don't know if they can find a way this season because of how unpredictable this was. Like I said, last week I stood up on the table for Antonio Brown thinking he was going to be the guy that stepped in for Godwin that would minimize that loss and they could buy time until Fournette got back. Somebody else is going to have to step up and assume that role. But Brady and Antonio Brown, they did have special chemistry. And the one thing about Antonio Brown on the field and why this is such a massive loss, he can get open against man. He can get open against zone. He understands the game as well as anybody, and he makes it very easy on quarterbacks. So the loss of that is going to be tough to figure out and find. But I do think if they get Fournette back from that soft tissue, they still have an opportunity. I am not taking anything away from Tom Brady, Gronkowski, Evans, and whoever else, whether it's Grayson, whoever else steps in that role. I think that the key here, though, is getting Fournette back. And I just think, listen, he can do it all. He's a 3-down back. He can be physical. And in the playoffs, he averaged over 100 yards and a touchdown a game. You need that type of productivity. He has to get back for them the chance. But I do believe Tom Brady will win another Super Bowl. Maybe, I'm not sure this year again, but I think he's still got enough in him to get one done.
Wow.
I'm alone on this island, probably. You can cut this clip and get it ready for Man in the Arena Part 2 and put it out there when he wins another Super Bowl, because I think he's done. Like, the man has 7 Super Bowls. And also the one that they won last year, like, I would never go as far as to say winning a Super Bowl was lucky. It wasn't lucky, but, like, they got a lot of breaks in their direction. And Tom Brady is going to continue to need these breaks. And at some point, we don't say Father Time is undefeated because it sounds cute. We say it's because it's true. So if he's going to have 3-4 more years, which is a stretch of this top level performance, you also need a defense to stand up, which it doesn't look like that defense is going to be able to do this year. You're also going to need some offensive guys to step up and make plays throughout the course of the playoffs. And it doesn't seem like they're going to have those guys. Like Evans coming back off of a soft tissue injury. You're not going to get him at full speed. Same thing for Leonard Fournette. I do think that we have to accept that Tom Brady's made getting to and winning Super Bowls look easy. It is freaking hard.
Yeah.
Jeff, you know, but I know it even better than you because I don't have none. Like, things have to work out in your favor over and over and over again. And I think Tom Brady is outstanding, but I don't think he's magic. Like, at some point, this has to run out, and I think that we are at that point. If not, I'm going to be in Man in the Arena.
Some people may say Tom Brady is magic, though, I would say.
I'm gonna put you in that Max Kellerman category. You better be careful. Don't write off Tom Brady quite. He's still thrown the ball more than anybody else in the NFL this year. He has almost 5,000 yards again. He has continued to produce. And I do believe Todd Bowles, I will say this, I do believe Todd Bowles can get this and piece this defense together enough to bide time in the playoffs. I'm telling you, if Fournette comes back, do not underestimate how good the Buccaneers can be. This team is still good, and Tom Brady gets the best out of the guys around him, whether it's Gronkowski, Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown. You can keep naming the list. Edelman, you can go all the way back to New England. You keep naming guys, right? Wes Welker. He will find ways. It's just a matter of time. How quickly can he build that chemistry, Fox? Like, this dude, I'm not saying he's magic, but he is very productive at getting the most of the guys around him. That's the key to winning Super Bowls, because to your point, it requires all 3 phases. I think he gets the most out of every phase and will continue to do that.
Yeah, but I mean, I think building a dynasty and repeating a Super Bowl, part of the reason we thought they were going to do it was because they brought everybody back. And I also kind of think that is not how you do it. That's not how they did it in New England. Like, you can make a short run with a similar roster, but you're going to have to find a way to continue to rebuild that roster. And while I think that Tom Brady obviously is capable of winning a Super Bowl outside of New England and outside of that Belichick infrastructure, the way that they run their team, the way that they build their team, the way that they coach their team, I think that part of the reason why we respect Belichick so much is that he was able to do it over and over and over again. I'm not sure that what they're doing down there with Light and Arians, I'm not sure that they've shown. No, I'm not going to say I'm not sure. I know that they have not shown the ability to do that. We don't know if they can. Maybe they can. But we have to accept that winning a Super Bowl is really hard to do. And it's not outrageous for me to say that a nearly 45-year-old man who's won 7 Super Bowls is not going to win anymore. Like, that's not a slight on Tom Brady. He's still fantastic. I see it. You see it. But it's so hard to do. Teams,
they're 1 for 1.
Not quarterbacks. Right. They're 1 for 1. They won Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, they're 1 for 1. And you're like, I'm writing them off. They're in the playoffs. They've clinched. If they don't have the injuries, they're still going to be up there with Green Bay and having that same conversation. They're sitting in the same seat they were last year, having to go to Green Bay, had to do all those same things. Like, you're going to write. I mean, I'm not saying they will, but I'm saying that you just go, they can't do it because of Light and Arians. You haven't given them even an opportunity. They're 1 for 1 doing it with an opportunity of doing 2 for 2.
Nobody does what they did in New England.
Listen,
I'm not writing them off. I'm just writing in probability, common sense. I'm writing in the rest of the NFL, like how hard I'm writing in how difficult it is to do. Like, I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's exceedingly unlikely that Tom Brady in the next 3 years, we're going to say 3 years before his talent starts to decline, like, that might be a stretch. I'm just saying that combined with putting together a team, having the injury luck, having everything break in your direction, like, that is part of winning a Super Bowl. You and the Colts should have won a lot more Super Bowls than you did, given the talent and production that you had. But things didn't always break your way. I don't understand how you are in this situation and you can look at them and say, oh, it's going to all break in their way again this year, like it did last year, like it did 6 other times for Tom Brady. Like, at some point, it's not going to work out. And I think being away from Belichick and the infrastructure, it may not cost them in the immediate, like, short term as far as last year is concerned, but it will cost them in the way that they build this team going forward. Or cost Brady.
Yeah, I think when you look at their defense, man, like, they've had some unfortunate injuries from the beginning of the season. I think they can overcome those once the playoffs are here. Like you said, they're 3 hours until it's showtime. Tom Brady performs under pressure as well as anybody. You give him a slight chance, he's going to take full advantage of it. Just ask the Jets last week, and you think about what this guy has done. That defense, if they get the one stop, I just trust Todd Bowles. I think when you look at the totality of their coaching staff with Bruce Arians, Clyde Christensen, Tom Brady, I do believe, I'm not saying that they're going to be the same dynasty because of length of time, but to say that they couldn't do the same in a short span of time, I disagree. I think this team is still very tough, a very tough out because of the way they placed it. I do think they have a good roster. I think Light's done a good. They got a great offensive line, good skill guys. One went crazy and jumped off, at halftime. The other one tore his ACL. But this team was still set up from a roster perspective as almost as good as anybody in the league, man. They can continue to put that thing together.
Well, even at this point, after everything that has happened this season, Tampa Bay still has the 3rd best odds to win the Super Bowl at 14%. But ladies and gentlemen, I just want to wrap this segment by saying that Dominique Foxworth, the man on your screen, is betting against Tom Brady. All right, guys, let's go over to the AFC. Derrick Henry healing up in just the nick of time. Titans coach Mike Vrabel saying yesterday that the team has discussed Henry returning from injury reserve this week, which will allow him to practice. The running back in week 8, he went on to have foot surgery after being injured then. In Tennessee now, having the edge for the number 1 seed in the AFC over Kansas City due to a head-to-head win in week 7. It's an impressive run for the Titans, who have been without their workhorse Derrick Henry since week 8. So, Jeff, I know that you have all the faith in the Titans. You've talked about it, well, for a few weeks now. So which AFC team are you most confident in?
I'm sticking with the Titans. I mean, listen, when you think about this football team and what Mike Vrabel's done, who, by the way, should be coach of the year or at least in consideration with everybody else, They've used 88 players, Charlie, 88 players to get where they have. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC. They lost Derrick Henry. It has not slowed them down. Their offensive production has still been fantastic from the running back position. They are physically dominant on both the offensive line and the defensive line, which can travel in the playoffs. And when I look at them and they get the week off, and with the ability to bring Derrick Henry back, if he's anywhere close to being 100%, this is not a team anybody wants to face. Yeah. They can get after you with the best of them. I like the mentality that Mike Vrabel has put in this football team. They know who they are. They make no mistake about every week that they show up. They know exactly what they need to do to win games. I think Mike Vrabel has done a masterful job at making sure players are put in a position to play their best in their best position. And it may not always look like we want it to. It's not sexy. You don't put up a ton of numbers, doesn't put up a ton of, expectations offensively or defensively for that matter. It's just play consistent ball and let the other team make mistakes and beat themselves. It's not an easy way to win, but it is a way to win, and Mike Vrabel has maximized that, and they have taken full advantage, obviously being the number 1 seed in the AFC.
I think you said it perfectly at the end, is that it's not an easy way to win, but it's a way to win. I think their style of play does limit how many ways they can win a game, which makes it more difficult for me to believe in them. Mike Vrabel is Coach of the Year. I think you're right about that. And when he was hired, you and I go back a long ways with Mike Vrabel, and he was one of the guys who I knew as soon as he was hired, he was going to be a successful coach because he's honest and straightforward and direct and trustworthy. Those are things that you don't think about. You think about scheme as why you want to get a coach. No, not if you're the head coach. You're a head coach. You need to have a guy that you can believe in and that commands respect and that also respects his players. And I think Mike Vrabel is that guy, and that's why they're having success. And their resume is the most impressive. All the wins the big wins they've had this season is incredibly impressive. But they've had some really surprising and disappointing losses to some bad football teams. So I think this year is kind of an up in the air, kind of random year in the football. There is nobody who really has run away with it. I guess you can say the Packers seem to be putting some separation, but certainly on the AFC side, there's nobody that has run away with it. And for that reason, I'm going with the Chiefs. And they lost last week to the Bengals in kind of embarrassing fashion because they came back on them from up by 2 touchdowns, I think it was. But I still think that when I don't know what I can trust, which I feel like that's fair to say, none of us really know what we can trust or who we can trust on the AFC side. I just put my money on the talent and the talent of Patrick Mahomes and those weapons they have on the offense and the defense that has been playing better despite being eviscerated last week by Joe Burrow. They've been playing better on defense. I can put my trust in that team that has shown us a track record of getting it done in amazing fashion in the postseason. And their opportunities or ways they can win compared to the Titans, they just have a bigger breadth of ways to win. They can go down by a bunch and come back and win the game. The Titans know that. The Chiefs did that to the Titans in the playoffs a couple years ago. So that stuff to me is why I'm leaning more on the Chiefs. And maybe it's just that I can't look at any of these other teams and trust them because I haven't seen them do it in recent history. And they've all had really bad, disappointing losses so far this year.
Yeah, I would say this. It's hard for me with the Chiefs especially to just kind of co-sign for they can do it the same way they've done it in the past because this is not the same football team that it was in the past. They are not nearly as explosive as they a couple, even last year. And I still think there's some question marks at their offensive line, at the tackle position, and being able to protect Patrick Mahomes, who I think under pressure has not performed at the same level because of the pressure. And that's just being honest. I think Kelsey is obviously a stud. Hill is a stud. Patrick Mahomes is one of the elite quarterbacks in our game. I also kind of tend to slide over in the defensive category for the Chiefs. They are a risky Spagnuolo. I mean, he likes to bring that pressure. He likes to get in people's head. He wants to play aggressive defense. I think in the playoffs, there is high risk and high reward. I understand that. There's also risk that can cost you. And when I saw it last week against the Bengals, bring 3rd and 27, you're bringing 7 dudes. I do not understand that philosophy. So either that has to change to a degree, make better decisions as far as that goes. Because when I look at this team, they're not nearly as scary to me this year as they have been the past 2 years.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said that they were. I agree with you, but we just saw that they do have the capability of putting up big numbers. And I think that's why I lean towards them, because I feel less confident that the Titans are able to do that. And the Titans can rush the passer up front, but their secondary is not really all that healthy or good, frankly. And that, to me, seems like a matchup issue. So they can run the ball well, but I mean, if they match up against the Chiefs, I can see the Chiefs not stopping them offensively, but they're certainly going to slow them down because that offensive style of play is a slow style of play. But what are they going to do on the other side with Patrick Mahomes if he is on his game, which it seems like he has been recently?
I mean, all I have to say is I know the Titans have to be so happy to more than likely getting Derrick Henry back for this end of the season, heading into the playoffs. Even after missing 8 games, fellas, Henry still ranked 6th in the NFL for rushing and tied for 6th in rushing touchdowns, along with Jalen Hurts. So that is extremely, extremely impressive. Okay, I'm going to say goodbye to you two for just a bit because we have some NBA coming up. But don't worry, plenty of football left on this show. But like I said, some hoops to get to. So JJ Redick and Big Perk joining us to debate whose return will have the bigger impact, Kyrie Irving or Klay Thompson's. Plus,
Redick has his shot blocked by Perkins.
Kendrick Perkins sees a little guard down there. You just run over him.
Foul on Perkins.
JJ Redick puts his body on Kendrick Perkins, fighting for the loose ball. You're assuming Kendrick Perkins is going to out-jump JJ Redick.
Okay.
What's up, Rook?
Hey, Perk and I had some battles back in the day in the playoffs, Magic and Celtics.
You know what? This is how we like it here on First Take. Some friendly competition. And with these two, we've got some history on our hands. So Kendrick Perkins, JJ Redick. Perfect timing as we get into some very exciting NBA news because, guys, 2 champions returning to action this week. This first one we have been waiting literally years for. It has been 2 years now. There's optimism that Warriors guard and splash bro Klay Thompson making his return against the Cleveland Cavaliers on Sunday. That, according to sources telling ESPN. A final decision on his return expected to be made once the Warriors return from back-to-back games this week on the road. And over in the East, Kyrie Irving expected to make his season debut tomorrow at Indiana after missing nearly half the season after not being vaccinated. Here's KD.
He loves to play. He loves being out there with his teammates. So can't wait to see him out there. And this is our livelihoods. This is something we dream about every day. So to go through this situation, then to get an opportunity to play right now, I know there's a lot of emotions going through his head, and as teammates, we got to be there to support him.
All right, the Warriors currently first in the West, the Nets second in the East. So, Perk, whose return is more impactful, Klay or Kyrie?
Well, Charlie, no disrespect to Kyrie Irving, but when you look at the Brooklyn Nets, KD and James Harden, they actually could make it to the finals without Kyrie Irving. The Golden State Warriors are not making it out of the Western Conference without a healthy Klay Thompson. So when I look at these two, I'm taking Klay Thompson for the simple fact that I feel like we all forgot who the hell Klay Thompson really is. This guy's a top 75 greatest player of all time. And let me take you down memory lane. See, no disrespect to Jordan Poole, no disrespect to Andrew Wiggins. Those guys are playing phenomenal basketball right now in the regular season. But when it matters the most, Klay Thompson has showed us time and time again that he's capable of being the best player on the floor, like in 2016 in the Western Conference Finals against Oklahoma City in the elimination game on the road, a Game 6, where he went for 19 in the fourth quarter when they was down 8 going into the fourth. See, the thing is that Klay Thompson takes so much pressure off of Steph Curry. Like, we look over the last 2 weeks, teams have been keying in on Steph. He's been struggling a little bit. Well, you can't do that when Klay Thompson return. And I think that we don't show this man enough respect on how great of a shooter he is, how great of a player he is, and what he brings to the game of basketball, and especially the Golden State Warriors.
One correction there, Perk. Klay's a top 77 player of all time. He had it on his jersey for weeks, all right? I think if you look at it in the short term, the immediate impact, I think Kyrie's going to have more of an impact for the simple fact that the Nets need bodies. They've relied heavily on James Harden and Kevin Durant to be playmakers, and they really need that third playmaker, and Kyrie will give that to them. He's also healthy. We know he's healthy. He's coming off a season where he averaged 27, 6, and 5 on 50, 40, 90 shooting percentages. There's still some uncertainty about this roster for sure. I still think they need another big wing defender. They're 25th in the NBA in defensive rebounding. Steve Nash talked a bunch about this last night after the game. As far as Klay Thompson, the reason I say it's the immediate impact, we don't know what he's going to look like. Now, hopefully he's healthy and he's normal Klay, but he hasn't played basketball in 2.5 years. There's certainly a rhythm that he has to get before he can return to peak Klay. My big question long term is, can Klay be that elite two-way player he was prior to this injury? If he is, look, I think the Warriors are already the favorites along with the Suns to win the NBA championship. If he is that player, they're the favorites for sure.
Well, JJ, you talk about uncertainty. It's a lot of uncertainty when it comes down to Kyrie Irving. When we talk about being reliable, when we talk about being dependable. See, we already know if Klay is healthy, we know that Klay is going to play. We know that Klay is not going to show up one day and say, you know what, I'm taking off from work. We don't know that about Kyrie Irving. So that's one thing that we got to give a nod to far as Klay Thompson. And now it's just things are different now. So when I know Klay is coming off a torn ACL and a torn Achilles, but when you look at guys like John Wall and Kevin Durant, it speaks volumes about, the doctors that they have now, the technology. And Klay was supposed to return in Christmas, but, he had to get more reps, get his legs back under him. But I will say this to you. The Golden State Warriors, they know themselves. Listening to Steve Kerr, listening to Draymond Green in their post-game interviews saying, hey, man, look, I know these young guys been playing well, but when Klay comes back, he's inserted right into the starting lineup because they know their ultimate goal is to win a championship. It's not impactful short term. It's about the marathon, JJ.
There's no doubt that the Warriors have a better roster fit and a better roster balance than the Nets. In terms of coming back from this injury, you mentioned John Wall. John Wall was not the same player post-injury that he was pre-injury. For every Kevin Durant that we've seen, there's 10 or 12 guys that haven't been who they were pre-injury. And I'm not saying that's the case with Klay. I hope Klay is as good as he was or better. The thing you brought up that I think is the best point you made here, Perk, is availability. And what happens if we get to April and May and the Nets have a top 1 or top 2 seed in the East, and they're starting out both those first 2 rounds without one of their best players in Kyrie Irving because he can't play home games in New York City. I think that's the biggest question mark about this return. It's not necessarily what's the impact going to be in the regular season. The Nets are going to be fine. They're going to end up with a top seed. It's what's the impact if we get to the playoffs, and he's still unvaccinated, and New York City still has these mandates in place.
Okay, JJ, so let me follow up with, should both teams be at full strength? Who goes the furthest in the postseason?
Right now, the Warriors. I mean, there's no doubt I think the Warriors are the favorites with a healthy Klay Thompson.
Perk, what do you say?
You know what? Here's the thing. When you look at a guy like Kyrie Irving and you look at a guy like Kevin Durant, we have to remember this, and I'm going to go back and repeat this. I still think that Klay is more impactful, but when you have that big three in Brooklyn and they're together and Kyrie's mindset is right, which we don't never know. We don't know. It's day to day with him. But if his mind is in the right place, The Brooklyn Nets are just too dangerous offensively. Like, you have too much firepower. But again, I'm not taking anything away from the Golden State Warriors because they have culture. They have a different system. Their offense is hard to guard. They have a Defensive Player of the Year candidate in Draymond Green who's anchoring that defense. So if I had to pick one, if they were to battle in the finals, look, I give all the praise to the Nets, but I'm going with the culture, the coaching, and the system in the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It's interesting.
You said like 3 different things there, so I'm trying to kind of dissect.
Yeah, I say.
Yeah.
No,
your pick is the Warriors. It takes a while for you to process everything. Is what you're saying?
No. It take a while for you to process everything. I didn't process it. I just gave flowers to one and the other, but I picked when I had to choose.
And so did I. And I said the Warriors. I just did it in a less roundabout way, where you just said that the Nets are more dangerous, and if they're healthy and if Kyrie's right, they're the better team.
Well, it's very interesting because the Warriors actually have a 365 to 113 record when Steph, Klay, and Draymond all play. That is the highest win percentage for any trio in NBA history. So very dominant. Definitely can't count against them. Okay, guys, we are going to bring you back in a bit to talk more NBA, but still to come on First Take, just how far can Joe Cool take the AFC North winning Bengals? Grab your cigars. We're going to talk Cincy's ceiling shortly, and you do not want to miss that. And as discussed earlier, Baker was atrocious last night, and finally he's admitting he needs shoulder surgery. Did he ruin the Browns season? Mina Kimes joining the show shortly to weigh in on that. It's virtually win or go home for the 49ers, who are up against the NFC West leading Rams. Coach Kyle Shanahan said Jimmy G will start if he is healthy enough to function. So, Jeff, are the 49ers better off starting Jimmy G or Trey Lance?
Jimmy G. Look, Trey Lance did a good job this weekend, but they're still better with Jimmy G. He's played the entire season for them and got them in this position. And listen, I think they beat this team 5 times in a row. I think they have a good shot at beating them again with Jimmy G coming off the injury report. So I think they go with Jimmy G and get the victory.
Okay, Joe Burrow has been playing out of his mind with the Bengals clinching the AFC North. Dom, how far can Burrow carry Cincy into the playoffs?
All the way. I think we sometimes overestimate how important the quarterback position is, but it is incredibly important. It's the most important position to be playing well, and he's playing as good as anyone in the league. He's playing like he's the best quarterback in the league. He just beat Patrick Mahomes in a shootout. So if you can do that in the regular season, I think that you can do just about anything in the playoffs. I'm not picking them to win, but he's certainly capable of taking them all the way.
Yeah, all the way. That says a lot. Now, the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals Sunday, injuring their playoff seeding. Jeff, are the Cowboys contenders or pretenders heading into the postseason?
I'm saying they're pretenders. Listen, this team has lost their identity since Dak came back from the injury. They have not been the same football team offensively. They're neither explosive nor physical, as well as their defense has played to keep them in games and give them short fields with all the turnovers and the production out of their defense. Their offense has not been able to match and keep up. I do not think that carries them to the Super Bowl, as disappointing as that sounds for Cowboys fans.
Okay, guys, what's the quick takes for? Oh, go for it.
I understand that they've been inconsistent, but it feels wrong to call them pretenders because I don't think you'd be shocked if they just reeled off one of those big offensive games. They had another 3 or 4 turnover game and knocked off teams. Like this year, it feels like the playoffs are up in the air. And I might agree with you on any other season, but with the exception of, I guess, the Packers, who I think also are vulnerable, I think that anybody can be beaten in the playoffs this year. And the Cowboys have all the pieces. If there was one big problem with the Cowboys, I'd be more concerned. The fact that these other things pop up, maybe that should make me more worried, but that makes me feel like you can get all those things addressed.
Okay,
this is what should worry you. The games.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Let me just say this. You should be concerned about this. Washington, Giants, Washington, Cardinals. All the numbers you're talking about have been those 3 in the NFC leads, and they play a team outside their conference and they lose. Just keep remembering that fact, too.
Yeah, Nika, that's a very, very, very good point that Jeff makes. But you know that we are not done talking about the Cowboys. They're definitely going to be coming up later on in the show. But We've got Mina Kimes joining the show, gentlemen, so stick around for that because we are getting back to what is Big Ben's legacy coming off what looked to be his final home game as a Steeler. Plus, how about this blunt question? Did Baker Mayfield's decision to play through a shoulder injury actually ruin the Brown season? You do not want to miss what Miss Mina has to say on this one. Keep it locked to First Take. First Take still to come on this Tuesday morning. Mina Kimes heard someone say Tom Brady has won his last Super Bowl, and now she cannot wait to respond. What is she going to say? Plus, Kendrick Perkins has a shocking take in just a bit that will leave your jaw on the floor. It's going to be very hard to carry on after this one. And after the Cowboys lost to the Cards, we're wondering just how far can Dak carry Dallas into the postseason. Stay tuned. First Take rolling on.
So excited finally to have an opportunity to crush Dominique Foxworth.
Let's just fight. Let's just argue. Win. Got a dub. Got a dub.
He really was.
Give me that dub.
Nick.
You can tell me that Mina is not a robot right now when she was in your face. You can't prove it. It's actually a good look, Mina. You should go with the hat more often. I like it.
It's Friday. Do you hate the weekend? I'm Dominique.
I like that.
Don't text me because you're going to get a one-word response.
If there was a hockey cat, it would be Mario Lemieux.
Oh my gosh, this is too good. I am so excited for this segment. Mina Kimes is here joining the guys.
Any of that.
We do not know what
That
to
was
expect.
early pandemic. None of it counts. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. New year, new you.
Pandemic.
Or can we expect more of the same, guys? Because I hope we can. But Mina, we're going to get to you in just a second. First, we're going to talk about Big Ben. Last night, the man was met with a standing ovation. He took the field to play his final game at Heinz Field, putting a bow on a successful 18-year NFL career. Then, guess what? He got his greatest wish, 26-14 victory against the Browns. And as you can imagine, the quarterback getting choked up after this game.
I didn't think I was going to take the field again, but it's the best play in football when you're an offensive player is to take a knee. And so I'm glad I got to do it one last time.
One last time. How do you leave this place, Ben?
I don't know. With a win. So thankful and blessed to be able to call this place home for almost half my life. In front of these fans and seeing all the signs, and there's no place like it.
Jeff, what is Ben Roethlisberger's legacy?
Oh, the face of the Steelers. I mean, when you think about the Steelers, you think about Ben Roethlisberger. Tough quarterback, stands in the pocket, takes shots, bodies littered around his feet, guys draped on him, still sitting in the pocket waiting for that receiver to come open so he can throw him one and make a huge play. I mean, I think the way that he played the game, the physicality which he played it with wasn't normal, and it was something that we saw. And then I'm going to remember him as a tackler. In all honesty, he made a great tackle on Nick Harper on a fumble from Jerome Bettis the year they won the Super Bowl that cost us one. So a little painful memory for me as well from Ben Roethlisberger in the playoffs.
Yeah, Ben had a pretty impressive career on the field, and I think he made a point there at the end that he spent almost half his life there, and there's a lot of difficult times that he had there and some good times. So I think that Ben, probably the fans there are pretty appreciative of the things that he's done, but it seems like they are not going to be too sad to see him go. So they're going to celebrate the Super Bowls and move on to the next chapter. Hopefully a chapter with a little less drama and a little bit more winning, I would think.
All right, well, a very nice night for Steelers fans. But if you are a Browns fan, you are looking sideways at Baker Mayfield this morning because he had a disastrous game, gentlemen. One of the worst games, in fact, of his season last night, throwing 10 straight incomplete passes at one point. He was also sacked 9 times, the third most by a Browns quarterback all time. So, yeah, we saw really just the bad and the ugly, none of really the good from Baker Mayfield last night. So let's hear from the quarterback after the game.
It's not going to always be pretty or smooth, but I'm a fighter. If anybody ever questions how much I want it, just turn on this tape. I've continued to lay it out on the line when I haven't been healthy. Tried to fight for our guys. And right now, I'm pretty damn beat up, to be honest with you. There's no way around it. I gave it everything I had tonight.
Okay, so Baker last night also confirming he will be having shoulder surgery in the offseason. So, Mina, let's start with you here. Who deserves the most blame for the Browns' struggles this season?
The quarterback. I mean, when your quarterback plays like a bottom 5 passer over the course of an entire season, which is what we're talking about, you can't compete in the NFL. And I understand that injury played a large role in that, but the question is not, what will Baker Mayfield be going forward? He definitely has the capacity to rebound from this season. But if we're looking at what the Browns accomplished or failed to accomplish this year, I really don't see how you can blame anyone else over the course of an entire season in which he finished in the bottom of the NFL in just about every possible metric, at the top in interceptions and sacks, damningly at the bottom, by the way, when passing from a clean pocket, and at the bottom before week 6 when he took the week off. So, I understand some of the frustration with Kevin Stefanski's play calling last night. Perhaps people wanted more runs. The running back was injured. It was a meaningless game. But to blame the coach instead of the quarterback for this season, it's like blaming the driver of a car when the engine explodes. I just don't see how Kevin Stefanski could have changed anything when you're getting that level of quarterback play this year.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm with you, but he had a backup engine. Like, Baker was injured and playing poorly when he was injured. Like, the idea that he kept putting Baker back out there and he kept running the same things that weren't working, to me, Baker is a football player, and he seems to be one who's very competitive and also very cocky. And it seemed to me, I got the feeling that the organization was letting Baker play as long as Baker said he could play, when all of our eyes were telling us Baker can't play right now.
Can't do it
because of his talent, but also I think that his injuries had something to do with it. So, I blame Stefanski for partially for that, for continuing to trot that guy out there with a bad ankle and a bad shoulder.
Yeah, I guess.
And listen, I agree with you, Fox.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I agree. Mayfield did not play well. I'm not making any excuse for how poorly he played. Injured in week 2, we all understood how severe the injury was. And when you saw no progression and your quarterback not getting better, for Stefanski, your job is to put the best 11 out there. Yeah. If that's Keenum, if that's another avenue, however you have to go, it's not just about play calling. It's about the setup. He sees practice each and every day. If he's not capable of practicing, or he's not practicing well, or it doesn't look good, at some point you got to make a shift to give your team the best chance to get to the playoffs. And listen, this roster was loaded, and they had plenty of talent to get things done. If one position in particular, and I think we all agree, Mayfield is an average to maybe slightly average quarterback. It's not like an enormous loss to go to your backup with a run game that could be that effective if the defense pulled their weight. I think this was an organizational failure, in my opinion. I don't think you put it on one guy, but if I would put it on the coach, because he has to make the decision to move on from Mayfield, let him get healthy, and put somebody else in to possibly make the playoffs.
So I totally agree that Case Keenum should have played. Where I disagree is the notion that we're going to put this on Stefanski, because Jeff, Dominique, y'all have been around the NFL. You know the decision to sit a number 1 overall draft pick often does not lie with the head coach. It's a decision that tends to go up to ownership, to the front office. And look, if Kevin Stefanski did make that decision and he was the one pushing Baker out there, or pardon me, agreeing with Baker, because we know Baker wanted to play, then he does deserve criticism. But I am suspicious, just based on everything I've seen from this league for many, many years, that was all up to Kevin Stefanski.
I still think it falls on Kevin Stefanski. So what we're not going to do, I'm not going to allow you to criticize Andrew Berry. He's the only one in the whole organization who's done a good job. That roster is impressive. He's the only one that's done a good job. So it suggests to me that he would not also say, Baker, go out there and play. Maybe it's on the ownership, but you can't change the ownership. That falls on Stefanski. Not only do you have to manage down to your assistant coaches and your players, you also have to learn how to manage up to the ownership. That's your job. Your job is to figure out what the best thing is for your team and get people in line and doing that. Baker's job is to go play. It's not his job to assess his own performance or his health. So I think it falls on Stefanski still.
I'll throw out one positive for Browns fans, I think. Going into the season, I think it actually would have been a worse outcome to get average play from Baker Mayfield and sign an extension. And look, we're talking about how they should have benched him and played Case Keenum. But realistically, if they had done that, maybe a first round out in the playoffs. Like, come on. It's not like, some excellent prospect was sitting behind Baker Mayfield. We're talking about tweaking at the margins here and maybe pulling out 1 or 2 more wins. Now they know, candidly, what they have going forward. And for both Stefanski, who perhaps didn't have the juice to sit as number 1 overall draft pick, we don't know, and Andrew Berry, they have the information that they need to fix this football team.
So, Mina, being the fact that the organization now knows what they have in Baker Mayfield, do you think that he should return as the Browns starter next season?
Oh, well, they already picked up the option. I think they need to bring in real competition. Like the injury obviously factored into his poor play. We don't know to what extent, but it wasn't like he was a world destroyer before then. I think you can see how he looks after recovering from that surgery, but I also think this team needs to be aggressive about bringing on a realistic competitor, not just Case Keenum, someone in the draft, or pursue one of the high-end quarterbacks available in the trade market, because this roster is too good to waste on another season like this.
Yeah, I agree with that on Mina. I mean, I would say this. You got to go, if you're going to do it, you got to go big. I mean, I think you go for Russell Wilson. I think you go for an Aaron Rodgers if he's available, a Deshaun Watson if everything else off the field gets cleared up. I mean, when you look at that, you have to go big. Otherwise, I think Baker is your starter. I don't think you can draft somebody who's going to be better than him in 1 year, and I'm not sure you can go get, to your point, somebody who's kind of on par with him and expect a huge difference. This roster, in my opinion, is very solid. I think they've made a lot of progress in the last year or two. I think they can continue with that, but I'm with you. I think you either go wholesale change or you bring Baker back for 1 year and try to bolster the roster around him, because he's still pretty cheap at just under $19 million.
Yeah, Baker with a very poor showing last night. His 10 straight incomplete passes in the first half, the longest incomplete streak in the NFL since 2019. So that one stings.
Wow.
Okay, guys, you're going to be with us coming up after a quick break. We have a lot to get to. Tom Brady, has he won his last Super Bowl? The least couple of days in the Antonio Brown saga, from taking off his jersey and pads and leaving in the middle of the third quarter of the Bucs win versus the Jets, to his head coach saying he's no longer a Buck. And then last night, here's the kicker, sitting courtside in Brooklyn as the Nets took on the Grizzlies yesterday afternoon. Bruce Arians spoke about the entire situation.
No, I have no regrets. I just hope the best for him. Very hard, and I wish him well. I hope if he needs help, get some. And it's very hard because I do care about him. I care about him a bunch. I hope that he's okay.
All right, well, it is definitely not new year, new me for Antonio Brown. Mina, has AB played his last game in the NFL?
I'm never going to say never. I mean, if it wasn't over when he quit in Pittsburgh, when he quit in Las Vegas over the helmet stuff, when he was accused of sexual assault, sent threatening texts, when he pleaded guilty to felony burglary, when he got caught with the fake Vax card, why would it be over now? When he left in the middle of a football game. I'm not sure why people feel comfortable calling it at this point in Antonio Brown's career, when we have a mountain of evidence that the NFL does not care. This is like trying to catch a falling knife. And by the way, people are going to be mad at me for listing all that stuff. I'm not listing it to make any argument other than the fact that this dude's career will not be over until he can't play football. That's when I'll say he's not going to get signed by an NFL team. When he is not playing at a high level, and he was playing at a high level before this, it's just reality, and it's what we've seen from how the NFL treats Antonio Brown. Yeah.
Well, if they're going to be mad, then they're going to be mad at me too, because I think you forgot about when he threw furniture out the window. That was one of the things on the list. You left that one off, so if we're going to list those things, include that one too. I do, however, think, and maybe it's wishful thinking, I do think that his career is over, and I think it's because of how high profile this was. And I do think that when you have issues behind the scenes and like all the other issues off the field stuff, we've accepted that the NFL, and frankly, like, it's not just the NFL, no businesses really have a moral core, nor should we expect them to. And that is not how they're going to be making their decisions. I don't expect that to be the case. That is our obligation as a public to demand that of them. If we do not demand that of businesses, NFL teams, or anything else, they have no reason to follow whatever moral code we think they should. So I don't think that is going to stop them. That's never stopped them. The stuff that happens behind closed doors, we learn this whenever we have major incidences. When there is video, it is entirely different. I think it makes things real that people only imagine. The video of Antonio Brown. Did I miss a video?
There was video of him taping a phone call with his head coach, John Gruden. I just another thing we forgot, by the way. So there was video of that.
That
Still
list
not over.
continues to go on.
I'm just saying, it's not over.
That's fair. All right. Well,
And wasn't
all right.
there video outside of his house
I
the one
thought it
time
was
too?
over, but you're right. I'm wrong about this one. Is we cannot count this out. I like to think that it's over, but I think you're right. We can't trust that GMs haven't learned their lesson and they aren't desperate enough to be as stupid as teams have been up until now.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's over. I'm going to take the jump. Listen, I was delusional. As Dominique told me last week, I was delusional to believe it. I honestly believed that Antonio Brown was going to be the catalyst for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to continue on without Godwin after he tore his ACL and with the injury to Fournette and the soft tissue injury to who's obviously coming back and working through it. But I thought, man, the relationship between he and Brady, the relationship between he and Bruce Arians, and Arians bringing him back after the latest incident and saying, hey, it's for the betterment of the team and all those things, I believed. And so, I looked foolish. I may look foolish again, but I would tell you this. If the guy who went and picked you up from the airport and let you stay in his house being Tom Brady, when he brought AB in and Bruce Arians giving him as many opportunities as he has, and in the moment that he does it and the impact that it made for that team and the other 52 guys who are dressing and trying to make plays, if that doesn't tell every GM that when it matters most, it doesn't matter the most to him, that's where I think the football world steps in and goes, wait a minute, I can't tolerate that part because of fear of he does that in the middle of a playoff game, right? And does, topless jumping jacks through the end zone once again and makes you look really bad as a general manager or as a head coach. And so I think it's from fear of embarrassment that could happen to you after it's happened would probably be the reason I say he doesn't get another shot.
Well, I mean, can you imagine if another team brought him on board and something else happened? I mean, at that point, what do you say?
I can't.
We can imagine it.
I can't.
I mean, Mina, I honestly feel what you're saying as well. So, hey. Okay, but look, earlier Dom said that with all the weapons out in Tampa Bay, Brady has won his last Super Bowl.
Wow.
Mina, what do you think on this?
Wow. Weirdly, the same metaphor applies here about trying to catch a falling knife. I feel the same way about trying to predict anything about Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I can't believe you haven't learned your lesson, Dominique. People have called it with this dude a million times. Here's why you're wrong. He is 44 years old, and he is still a top 3 quarterback in the NFL, arguably the best. Rodgers is number 1. He is still playing at an extremely high level. Watching the Bucs near collapse to the Jets, what amazed me the most were some of the throws he was still making. This is still a good football team with a good young core. Maybe they don't win this year, although I still have them as contenders. We'll get to the A list. But these players will still be here next year. Tom Brady will still be there next year. He still plays behind what I believe is the best offensive line in the NFL in terms of pass protection. Absolutely, I am not calling it for him, and I am shocked that you did that.
Oh, yeah. I'm calling it.
Me out here preaching.
Please clip this so that I can be in Shannon Arena Part 2 because I'm calling it. And I don't disagree with anything that you've said, Mina. Tom Brady is outstanding, but he was also the same Tom Brady that had them trailing to the lowly Jets. Like, I do believe that he is human. Call me crazy. I think he's human. And I do believe, again, call me crazy, winning Super Bowls is a difficult thing to do. You need a lot of things to break in your favor. I think that Tom Brady's been able to do it 7 times. It's enough. He's done. Belichick's done. We're all done watching either of them hoist the Lombardi anymore for the rest of eternity. They are cashed out. Whoever they sold their soul to, they have taken all that they can from it, and now it's over. It's over, Mina.
Jeff.
Dominique, don't lie to yourself. I told you last hour, Mina's telling you this hour, your heart's going to be broken once again, and they're only going to give you a 10-second clip in Man of the Arena 2 when he has another Hall of Fame career. After you just said this, you ain't getting nothing but a blip. They won't even they're not even going to put your name on the screen, Dominique. They're going to blow my name.
Perfect.
because you're one of the million.
I can see it right now. That text, that first take caption on the bottom is just perfect for the next special.
To be clear, I mean, in the next special, maybe at the end of this season, which is going to be fantastic. But to be clear, Tom Brady has had 2 Hall of Fame level careers already, and he is still playing like a Hall of Fame level all-time great quarterback. My slight is not against Tom Brady. Like I said in the first hour, I'm not betting against Tom Brady. I'm betting on math. I'm betting on time. Like, these things just don't happen. The idea that you would argue that someone would win 7 Super Bowls and somehow you think they ain't done? Like, that seems absurd.
Yes.
Yeah,
like,
yes.
And
we have seen it proven wrong too many times. By the way, that part about you trying to walk it back, that's not making it into the special. Yeah, that's not making it. Only the part where you said Tom Brady's done.
Will not make the
Hold on, let me give Tom Brady and his production team one clear take. Give me an ISO so I can give him one clear take for Man in Arena Part 2. Thomas Edward Brady is done.
Oh, God.
I don't know. This man just wants to go
I don't know him.
Special out of that. I mean, come on, Mina. You're right.
Disagree.
Look, listen, the fireworks we all wanted from Mina and Dominique, so thank goodness we got them. Now, all 3 of you can take a quick break because we got to get to some NBA next. If you enjoyed Kendrick Perkins versus JJ Redick from hour number 1, you will not want to miss. For some NBA quick takes, Trae Young making history last night, becoming the first ever player to score 56 points and dish out 14 assists in a game. Wow, Perk, should Trae Young start in the All-Star game?
Charlie, I love Trae Young, but no, he shouldn't start. And it's not because of his individual play, but because I go off of wins. Not only do you have to put up numbers with me, you actually have to win games. And right now, the Hawks are sitting in the 12th spot, and they're not playing good basketball. 4 games below 500 is not going to cut it.
All right, fair point. This next one is for JJ. Jimmy Butler went down last night in the Heat's game versus the Warriors, and he had to be helped off the court. So, JJ, what is the impact of a Jimmy Butler loss to Miami right now?
If this is a long-term injury, there's definitely an impact. If this is just a short-term injury, I think it's minimal. They currently sit in 4th in the East. I expect them to finish right around there at the end of the season. They just had an 8-2 stretch where they played the majority of those games without Jimmy and, of course, without Bam. And Bam is also scheduled to come back sooner rather than later. They're getting great contributions from a number of guys. Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, Caleb Martin. It's heat culture, hashtag heat culture.
All right, well, Jimmy Butler's injury still needs to be further evaluated, but Coach said he feels fine. Okay, let's move on to Ja Morant and the Grizzlies, who took down the Nets last night in Brooklyn. Morant dropping 36 points in 5. Grizzlies scored in double figures as Memphis extended its winning streak to 5 games. Now, despite not having his best game, Durant is a favorite of many to win MVP. He has the second shortest odds behind Steph Curry, according to Caesars Sportsbook. So, Perk, who do you think should be the NBA MVP?
Well, it's not neither one of those guys that's on the list. Here's the thing, and it's no disrespect. I feel like that we're to a point of an NBA season that it's going to fluctuate throughout the season because guys are playing at a high level. But Charlie and JJ, let me take y'all on a trip to the dark side. I'm staying on the dark side. Where a guy they have a nickname for a guy that's called G12. You know who G12 is? That's Ja Morant. And the G stands for gangster, okay? And we know that the gangsters are lurking down there in Memphis right now. And see, here's the thing. Ja Morant, what he's doing right now, he is the MVP of late, in my opinion. No disrespect to DeMar DeRozan. He's been balling. But Ja Morant, any guy that he faces, superstar talent, he has been walking off the floor as the best player. LeBron James comes into Memphis, put up 37 points, 10 rebounds, 11 assists or something to that nature. Ja Morant hands him a 41-piece wing dinner with 10 biscuits on the side. Okay, he goes on the road in Phoenix, beats them on their home court with a game-winning layup, Kyrie Irving style. The Memphis Grizzlies are the only team led by Ja Morant to beat the top 3 teams in the Western Conference on their home court. So when I look at what Ja Morant is doing, his leadership, his swagger. Jay, you a big social media guy. He's that guy that goes on social media and talk that big talk and back it up the next game. He's one of the most unguardable guys in the league today. He's a generational talent. And if I had to pick an MVP today, next Monday may change, but today, right now, it's Ja Morant. G12.
Perk, you know that I love Ja. I find him to be one of the most entertaining players in the league. He'll make his first All-Star game this year.
Oh, get it out.
No,
Get
hold
it
on.
out. Get it out.
Legit chance to make All MVP, All NBA. He's going to win Most Improved Player. He's not in the top 5 of the MVP race right now. Let me tell you why, real quick. Let me just tell you why. When he plays, you just said, by the way, about Trae Young, winning matters. When he plays, the Grizzlies are 14-12. The 12 games he missed, they were 10-2. For the season, he still has a negative net rating for the Grizzlies when he's on the court. Winning matters. If we're talking about the last 6 games, yeah, you could make an argument that he's the MVP of the last 6 games of the season. But right now, Steph Curry is the clear front runner. He's the best player on the best team. But Ja Morant is not in my top 5 right now. That's not to say he's not in my top 5 or 6 favorite players or best players right now, but he's not in the top 5. It's Steph, KD, Giannis, Jokic, and you laughed at me on November 16th when I said you could make an argument that DeMar DeRozan is a top 3 candidate for MVP. I put DeMar top 5 right now, too.
I did not laugh at you. I did not laugh at you.
We'll find the tape.
Of all.
We'll find the
Second
tape,
of all,
Mark.
okay, well, go pull it up. Go pull it up. First of all, let me say this to you, okay? Again, winning matters, okay? If last time I checked, Memphis is sitting at the 4th spot, okay? They're winning games. And JJ, look, I'm very disappointed in you right now because as a former player, don't come telling me about a net rating and come telling me about this, that, and that Memphis record without Ja. Ja is Memphis. Ja is Memphis. The reason that Memphis is relevant is because of Ja Morant. See, you supposed to come on here and we supposed to, as former athletes and former hoopers, we supposed to give the audience through a different lens. Not coming on here speaking numbers, but what we see from the eye test. Like watching the game last night when he went into Brooklyn, when it's him, it's KD, it's James Harden all on the floor together, and all of a sudden he comes out as the winner and the best player on the floor. And he does it in great fashion. This is what I'm saying. So when we talk about of late and we talk about the wins and how he's winning and who is he doing it against, go against all those guys that they have on that list except for the Bulls because they haven't played them recently, and go look at Ja numbers and come back and tell me right now that he shouldn't be the front runner. You don't even have him in a conversation, which is flat out disrespectful.
He's in the conversation if we're going to name 6 or 7 guys, Perk. But look, Perk, the eye test certainly matters in this. And as a former player, we can get caught up in numbers a lot. And we talk about front office, media. Everybody gets caught up in numbers. Net rating is not that complicated of a number. When you're on the court, how many points do you give up defensively per 100 possessions? How many points do you score per 100 possessions? That's basketball. There's 100 possessions roughly in a game, give or take. That's basketball. So his rating per 100 possessions is negative for the season. Now, 19 games, pre-injury, that's a small sample size. I get it. The last 6 games, even smaller sample size. He's been phenomenal when we talk about net rating. I think it's somewhere around 16 or 17. Positive, great. That's great. Steph Curry, best player on the best team. Giannis having another amazing season. That team has an incredible record when him, Drew, and Chris Middleton play. They sit 2 games out of first place in the East right now. You can make an argument for Giannis. You can make an argument for Jokic. Somehow that team, having all those injuries, all those illnesses with COVID, they're in 5th place in the West, and he's having an historic season. Ja Morant's awesome. I'm not knocking Ja Morant at all, but he's not in that conversation right now. He's in the conversation for All-Star, All-NBA, and Most Improved Player.
Well, Mr. Reddick, first of all, didn't I just say that this is one of those seasons that month by month the MVP is going to fluctuate? So over the last 2.5 weeks. Okay, so we all know that you go to bed at 8 o'clock at night, right? You can tell the world this. I know this. You go to bed early. Memphis seems to play late games, okay? So you're going to tell me.
I watched the game last night, Perk. I stayed up and watched the game last night.
Not just that game. I'm not even talking about Memphis. Golden State has been playing, they play late games. For the last 2 weeks, Steph Curry has been in the slump. Yeah. So you mean to tell me over the last 2 weeks that Steph Curry, the way that he has been playing, he's still the clear front runner over a lot of those guys, including Ja Morant? Like, Jay, I need you to go back and revisit Ja Morant last 5 games, and then we need to come back on here again. I don't know what day you're working on First Take, but I work every day. I need you to come back on here so we can revisit this conversation because you tripping right now. And here's the thing about the net rating. The net rating may not be that hard, but the net rating and the 100 possessions, and hey, you know, when this guy's on this side of the floor, he makes 100% of his shots on this right elbow, and I don't want to hear that, because that, along with analytics and all that, is the reason why a guy like Carmelo Anthony was out the league. It's the reason why a guy like Isaiah Thomas is fighting getting back into the league, because we get caught up in too much per 100 possessions this and per 100 possessions on this defensive rating, instead of just watching to see what the hell these guys are doing.
Look, we could get into a very long debate about analytics versus the eye test.
We sure could.
Hey, we could. And listen, I believe there's value in both, Perk. There's value in both. The thing you said that I will agree with, and we can come on here once a week and talk about this all you want, is this MVP race. It's one of the most fascinating races that we've had recently in the NBA, because it does seem like week to week, the front runner has changed. And I am agreeing with you. Yes, if we look at the last 6 games, not the first game Ja was back, the last 6 games, he is playing at an MVP level. The Memphis Grizzlies are 5-1 in those games. So yes, I'm talking about as a whole, roughly 35, 36 games now that we've played with 40-some to go. Yes. Yes, I'm talking about the whole season, all 35, 36 games. Ja Morant is not the MVP, okay?
Okay, but let's just look at the last 4 games. Ja's had 36, 30, 41, 33. He had one word that he tweeted out last night. Listen, he had one word he tweeted out last night. It was hungry.
I love his attitude.
Yeah, his name's G12.
Okay, it is Tuesday, which means it's time for another A-list, and we have Miss Mina Kimes here to do the honors once again this week. So, Mina, let's look at last week. In your debut, you had the Chiefs at number 1, the Cowboys at number 2, Packers at number 3, Bucks at 4, and Bills at 5. So here we are, a week later. What do you have for us for this week's top 5 NFL teams?
All right, some mistakes there, in order, but not the teams. Because at number 5, look, I don't know where Stephen A is, but I hope he's close to a television, because what I'm about to say is going to make his you're going to do one of these. Yes. I'm sticking with the Cowboys. They're still in my top 5. Yes, I know the offense has been inconsistent. No, I don't trust Mike McCarthy as far as I can throw him. But this is still one of the most explosive, the most explosive pass rush in the NFL. It's an offense that I think can turn it around. It's a proven quarterback. I am not jumping off the Cowboys bandwagon. I don't care that they lost, by the way, to a good team. Then at number 4, a team that remains in my top 5. That is the Buffalo Bills. I just think they're really fundamentally sound. This defense ranks first in the NFL in expected points added. They have been consistent despite losing Tre'Davious White. On the other side of the ball, they have found a ground game that revolves around, frankly, Josh Allen. Yes, he lapsed into the YOLO a little bit last week, but the upside is in outer space. Playoffs are about quarterbacks. I think this quarterback has the potential to win the Super Bowl. Coming up next at number 3, this is going to be my most controversial choice, but I'm going to buck the conventional wisdom. And I'm sticking with Tampa Bay, again, because of the quarterback, because he continues to play at an extremely high level, even though Dominique Foxworth thinks he's never going to win another Super Bowl. He is still elite. He still plays behind the best offensive line in the NFL. And on defense, they are getting Levante David and Shaq Barrett back. I trust Todd Bowles. I trust their ability to rebound. I trust Tom Brady. It's as simple as that. Number 2, Kansas City Chiefs. I know they lost. And by the way, Cincinnati, you're right on the outside, Bengals fans, before you get mad at me. But they still look like a dominant offense. Actually ranks first in the NFL in just about every metric. I think they could have won that game if not for Steve Spagnuolo getting a little bit too aggressive at the end there, but that's a conversation for another day. This is a balanced team with a dominant quarterback, a very, very top-tier set of weapons, and a good pass rush. And then finally, I think this is a unanimous choice, the Green Bay Packers. They have the highest floor of any team in the NFL. Now, I don't think they're so far above the rest of the league. I mean, we've had a lot of close wins, some dubious performances from the defense, but Aaron Rodgers is my MVP pick because he is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And notably, they get two of their best players on defense back, Jair Alexander and Zadarius Smith. I think Matt LaFleur right now is the best coach in the league as well. Give me Green Bay at the top of the list.
Okay, well, I think you're right about Stephen A. being out there somewhere smiling, putting the Packers at number one, putting the Cowboys at the bottom of this list. Mina, I think you killed it on the list. And also, we want to give you another shout out before we get to any reactions, because guess what? There was a tweet by one of our vice presidents at ESPN, Seth Markman, who wants to give you a shout out, Mina, for taking first place in ESPN's prestigious War Room League Fantasy Championship in your first year competing. So I think we have a graphic of that somewhere. But
thank you,
guys,
Ross St. Brown.
We certainly want to get some reactions to that, but look, we got to give Mina her props for this and also.
I'm going to say it this way. I'm glad Mina is fantastic at fantasy football because she, along with Stephen A., are not good list makers. All right, so whatever. We can't make lists. All right, so whatever that looks like, I'm just letting you. I told you last week, Mina, with your list. I shook my head at you then. I said, go back, regroup, bring yourself back with a better A-list this week.
Yeah.
And no, you have not done better. How do you put the number one AFC team doesn't make the top five? Like, they have beaten more playoff-bound teams than Kansas City and Cincinnati, you said it's just on the outside looking in, combined by beating 6 and the 5. And here's the bottom line. If they do get Derrick Henry back, which they may not, they still are one of the most physical football teams on both fronts. They don't have to depend on their quarterback being an absolute star. They can rush the passer, just like you talked about in Kansas City. You can make things happen. You can do those things. And you don't even have them on the top 5.
Oh, I want to ask
when you put the Buffalo Bills up there as Josh Allen runs over the Falcons after 3 interceptions. Mina, you are better than this. You are better than this list. You need to regroup again, get back on that fantasy football winning mentality, and come on back. Mina,
I want to ask you a question, Jeff Saturday. I want you on the record. We got Dominique on the record saying Brady's washed. I want you on the record for this.
I'm ready.
Saying that.
Would you pick the Titans over either the Chiefs or the Bills?
He did earlier today on Get Up.
I want to hear from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
a bad idea.
You take the Titans over the Chiefs.
It's a bad idea.
You can bookmark it.
Making these sort of bad predictions.
Yes. I trust. Listen, this is what I trust about the Tennessee Titans and Mike Vrabel. They know who they are. When they show up, they know the plan they have to execute, and they will execute it. They ain't scared to be who they are. They don't have to try to be something they're not. Tannehill doesn't have to be miraculous. I trust them absolutely 100%.
Wow.
Yeah, my issue with your list, it's a pretty good list, but having the Bengals on the outside feels like a problem. I'm not going to cape up for the Titans because I think their style of play is not a style of play that I can trust in the playoffs, not in the modern NFL. If we go to Jeff's 1950s NFL, then all right, let's get a power back and let's go. But that is not what we have. So I think the Bengals deserve a spot considering what they've done in recent weeks and considering how well their best player in the most important position, Joe Burrow, is playing quarterback. I think they deserve to crack the top 5 in front of a couple or at least one of these other teams. But maybe I hate to say that they deserve to be in there without kicking somebody out. That would be cowardly of me.
You got to kick someone out. That's how it works.
Let's continue to throw gasoline on my mentions. Get the Bucks up out of there. Get them out.
He's just a Tom Brady and Bucks hater. Okay, that's all we know. Mina, props to you. 2 weeks in a row with your A-list, standing firm on your convictions. We love it. And also, here's the tweet. Seth Markman saying, another crushing blow to Charlie Brown. Congrats to Mina Kimes winning ESPN's prestigious War Room League's fantasy championship. Here's the kicker in her first year competing.
Oh,
Made
you
money
hate
everybody.
to see it. I'm sorry,
I
Lewis
knew
Riddick.
she
I'm
was
sorry, Rex Ryan. I'm sorry, Teddy Bruschi. You can hold
not
these
sorry.
L's.
She's not sorry.
It's so good, Mina. Thank you so much as always, and we will see
Made
you
money
soon.
betting on that preseason. Thanks, Mina.
Congrats. Okay, guys, still to come on First Take. He's been Jekyll and Hyde this season, and we've seen good Dak. We've seen bad Dak. So what can we expect come playoff time? That is next right here on First Take.